So, I'm sure by now you must have heard of the breaking story of a female teacher from Mumbai from a very elite school who was recently bailed from court despite being charged with engaging in prohibited acts with a male student of hers. The question that we tackle in today's video is how come men who commit similar offenses are sentenced so harshly and female accused get away either comparatively lightly or they don't get charged at all. And later within the same video, let's also try to investigate if this happens only in India or does this happen all over the world. Hi, welcome to Collectively Vigilant. I'm Dr. D. If you're new here, please consider subscribing to this channel. And I'm just going to ask you to pause for a second and look at the graphic above me. It says that almost 90% of the people who regularly watch this channel are not subscribed. It will just take you a second, and I will be so thankful that you would do that. Thanks. Now let's start with the video. So the year was 2023 at the Bombay Scottish School in Mumbai, one of India's top schools known for both its academic rigor and alumna who are the social elite of Indian society. And within the same school, rehearsals were in progress for their annual English play. Behind the scenes though, a bond was forming between a 38-year-old English teacher, Bipasha Kumar, and one of her students, a 16-year-old boy from grade 11. Now, what started out as mentorship over literature and theatre allegedly evolved into something entirely different. According to the boy, it began with late night phone calls. Then, by December of 2023, Bipasha Kumar picked him up in her car and tried to get physically close with him. When the boy resisted, she introduced him to a friend called Shomita Banerjee, who is also known as Shomita Chatterjee. By January of 2024, the boy said he had been coaxed into taking alcohol and antidepressants by these two women. And it was at this point, the victim claims, that he was inappropriately touched by this teacher. Bipasha Kumar allegedly began driving him around in her car, taking him to hotels across the city. These incidents, the victim said, continued for over a year. Eventually, the boy, the victim, cleared grade 12, but the teacher was still trying to contact him. The family grew increasingly worried about their son's mental health. His mother noticed changes and became extremely suspicious. And then she intervened. By June of 2025, a police complaint was filed at the Dadar police station and the case against Bipasha Kumar had completely started. On June 29th of 2025, Bipasha Kumar, the teacher, was arrested, and now you must be wondering on what charges. Well, the charges are engaging in prohibited contact with a minor under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act under the Indian Penal Code, which is now known as Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. But this case has more than one accused. Bipasha Kumar's friend, Shomita Banerjee, fled the city the minute she realized that a case had been registered against her friend. She was tracked down about 2,000 kilometers away in West Bengal on July 19th. Shomita Banerjee was then ordered to surrender under the special POCSCO court in Mumbai, and she did that on July 23rd. Investigators now believe that Banerjee played a really important role in influencing this minor victim, the boy, in enabling him into a relationship with his teacher Bipasha Kumar. But then came the twist that no one expected. In a detailed order, the special POCSO court granted bail to Bipasha Kumar, the teacher, stating that the boy was above the age of 16 and that the evidence suggests that this was a consensual relationship. The judge further noted while giving Bipasha Kumar a bail that since Bipasha Kumar, had resigned from the school, he said, quote, the teacher-student relationship no longer existed and any power imbalance was now in the court's eyes diminished, unquote. But the prosecution does not agree with the judge. In the court, they opposed Bipasha Kumar's bail, saying that the victim feared for his safety and that Bipasha Kumar might try to manipulate or intimidate him. They said that the relationship was never romantic, it was coercive. The victim described being given substances, pressured, and repeatedly being subjected to inappropriate acts. The victim, of course, thinks that the system has failed him. On the other hand, Bipasha Kumar's lawyer, Neeraj Yadav, paints a completely different picture. He argued in the court that it was not exploitation, it was love. He said that the boy, the victim, had called Bipasha Kumar quote unquote his wife in many messages and emails, and that the FIR was actually being driven by the family because they were trying to stop a relationship that the family disapproved of. In the lawyer's words, he said, quote, once the boy turns 18, the parents cannot stop him. This case is their attempt to do just that, using the law as a weapon, unquote. So, what happens next is that the legal battle continues in this case. Bipasha Kumar, the teacher who allegedly exploited this child, the 16-year-old child, is out on bail. Shomita Banerjee, the psychologist who gave him anti-anxiety pills, which would lull him into a sense of sleep or a sense of giving up all inhibitions, well, that woman is actually in custody. And the boy, apparently, according to the news reports that I saw, he is preparing to testify. So this case is really interesting because it's at the crossroads of law and gender and age and power, and it raises so many different questions. When the accused is a woman and the affected minor is a teenage boy, does the system respond the same way? Now, I can give you a straight up answer about that, but before we do that, let's just look at how this case falls under the POCSO Act of 2012. Okay, so the law says under Section 11, subclause 4, it says Section 11, subclause 4 criminalizes actions like, quote, repeated or constant following or watching or contacting a child with a sexual intent, aligning with common grooming patterns. Then Section 11, and this time subpart number 6, addresses the enticing of a child for gratification or exploitation, including the use of pornographic purposes, okay, or pornographic images. So now let's also look at how exactly the same thing is dealt with when the victim is a female and the perpetrator is a male. And I think you and I know that we have read lots of newspaper headlines over the years which basically explain exactly this. So I have a few behind me, or on my side you'll be able to see. It says that one of the cases was from a Delhi school where a teacher was given life imprisonment because this 46-year-old teacher had SA'd his 15-year-old student in 2016, and you can definitely see that one of the cases that became really popular was of a 46-year-old male teacher who's been given life imprisonment for repeatedly subjecting a 15-year-old child in his class to physical assault, and that assault led to her pregnancy. And the court in this case said that the teacher is basically similar to a parent, and the Latin word that the court used was loco parentis, which basically means a parent basically in absentia, or pretty much the role of a parent. And the fact that a teacher would do that to a student is a heinous crime. And in that particular case, the victim was basically given a compensation of 16.5 lakh rupees, which was then awarded to the mother of the victim, because by this time the victim's mother had gotten the victim married. Okay, so a similar case was in Bengaluru, where a private tutor was sent to 20 years of rigorous imprisonment. This 25-year-old teacher had basically repeatedly physically assaulted and taken advantage of his 17-year-old female student, which even led to the birth of a child. And later on, of course, a DNA test was able to confirm that, that child did belong to the tutor, and that's why he was put into jail for basically around, I think it was 20 years in that case. You'll be able to see that right here. Then let's also discuss a case where the rigorous punishment that was given in this case was 111 years. So there was a Kerala tuition teacher, and he was given 111 years of rigorous imprisonment because in Tiruvananthapuram he had lured and raped a minor student of his. And of course, the court, in all these cases, the court does say time and time again, a teacher is like a guardian, a teacher is like a parent in absentia. And basically, that's the reason why he was rigorously imprisoned for 111 years. And the judge in that case said that the teacher deserved absolutely no mercy. Right. So I think some of these cases, I have so many which are on my right hand side. I think you can see them on the screen. I'm not discussing every single one. I just wanted to illustrate that when men are accused of doing such things, they're definitely, put through the ringer. They're definitely given rigorous punishment, and they're not looked at kindly by the law. Now, it remains to be seen what will happen to Bipasha Kumar in this case. My fear is that she will be let go, with not very rigorous punishment. My fear is that she will be seen as, like just a female who was probably not very satisfied with her life and sort of fell in love, quote unquote, with her student. And I think, unfortunately, the blame is also put on male victims who are much younger, and definitely there's a power dynamic. But I think there's a sense of machismo which lets people around the victims to usually say that things like, you're such a stud, you were able to sleep with your teacher, rather than taking it for what it is, which is, it is a sexual assault. It definitely is taking advantage of a child. It's definitely taking advantage of a, basically a case of power harassment. It's also, a betrayal at so many levels when a teacher would do that to a student. So it remains to be seen what will happen in this case. Whenever the hearing comes up, I will let you know, because under POCSO, which is the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act of 2012, the courts actually work in a fast track fashion. So hopefully there will be an update soon, and I will update you about that. And you must be wondering, why is it that I'm so sure that Bipasha Kumar will be let go quite lightly? If at all she will be sent into any kind of imprisonment, I think it's going to be quite light. And that's because I remember that there was a case in Surat where a 23-year-old female teacher was also accused under the POCSO Act, where she had allegedly exploited a minor male student of hers, and she had even abducted him and engaged in, non-consensual physical relations with this boy. And she was granted bail, and in the court's decision leaned on the argument that certain sections of POCSO Act, like penetrative assault, was not really applicable when it comes to a female perpetrator. And it basically, that particular case raised many inconsistencies regarding a minor's exact age in the act. The court also took into account her alleged psychological distress, which was linked to an abortion that she had had. So, considering these, areas of investigation, she was granted bail in that case. In Surat. Now, she was 23 and her victim was around the age of 16 around this time. However, in Bipasha Kumar's case, she was 38 when the alleged affair, I actually don't want to call it an affair. You will see that every time I say it, I put air quotes around it, but that's what the court has called it. So, whatever this physical relationship that began, she was actually 38 years old and he was merely 16 years old at that time. And today, he's around 18 and she's above the age of 40. I think she's 40 going into 41. So let's wait and watch what happens in this case. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think is going to happen in this case. Do you think that she will be rigorously given the kind of punishment we have had men receive in cases where someone was even given 111 years in jail? So do you think similar things would happen to her as well? And I just want to know where you stand on this issue. So let me know your thoughts. in the comments below. So while we're at it, while we're discussing Bipasha Kumar, the Indian case, why don't we also look at how exactly the same offense has been dealt with in USA? So I'm going to give you a few recent examples. One of a very famous one is from Arizona, the state of Arizona, where a teacher, a very young teacher, she was in her early 20s when she abused a boy who was 13 years old. She slept with him multiple times, including in her own classroom. So Brittany Zamora was basically given 20 years in prison after she pleaded guilty to sexual assault and for inappropriate conduct with a minor. Similarly, there's a case out of Florida where Jennifer Fisher was convicted in 2015 of sexual battery against a 17-year-old student, and she was sentenced to 22 years in prison. And there's a really, really famous case. You might actually have already heard of it. This happened in the late 90s. This was a case out of Washington where there was a woman called Mary Kay Letourneau. Very famous case in which, when she was in her early 30s, she started sleeping with a boy who was actually just 12 years old. And later on, even though she had pled guilty to this kind of misconduct, and the jail sentence initially given to her was just 6 months. But when she continued to make contact with the victim, despite being thrown into jail, she was actually given an additional 7 years. This was the case of Mary Kay Letourneau, and once she actually was released from the prison after her 7 year sentence, she actually came out, and then she married that 12-year-old boy who by this time was of age. He was basically a consenting adult, and there have been many movies made about her, and her case has been widely publicized sort of around the world, because this is such a strange case where a perpetrator, a female perpetrator, ends up marrying her male victim. It happens the other way around basically all the time. However, this is because female cases like this are quite unusual, so it's been widely studied and widely written about. So this is how the American courts have dealt with these kind of cases. There's a really famous case which was published in People magazine as well. This was Heather Hare. She was from Arkansas, and she was a former high school teacher, and she was basically thrown into federal prison for repeatedly, for her sexual contact with her student during a particular school trip, which was across state border, and that's why it became a federal case. So the courts outside of India seem to be taking this quite seriously. So let's hope that in the case of Vipasha Kumar, it will also be taken seriously as well. Although, if the case out of Surat of the 23-year-old female teacher, if that's any indication, it might not be. But let's just hope that something happens in this case and it sets a precedent for other female offenders and female perpetrators as well, because that's the unfortunate thing. So many little boys who do get abused by women never say anything, because in our societies we usually just call those boys basically atta boy, well done, you slept with a older female. But at the end of the day, they're children and they've been abused by someone in power, and that's what we need to understand. And there needs to be gender equality when it comes to such abuse cases. I mean, that's at least what I think. Why don't you let me know which side you're on and what are your thoughts in this case? And I look forward to those comments, and let's have a civilized debate in the comment section. So I'm going to stop here for today, and until I see you again, stay collectively vigilant.